year, Matt Bleby came to my attention at Equitana Melbourne in the Way of the Horse Challenge. For those of you who aren't familiar with this challenge, it's taking a relatively green horse with basic handling to the starting stage to showcase the horseman's skills. In years gone by, this challenge has been about getting the horse to do an obstacle course after 3 days of working with the horseman's techniques. This year's theme was Masters and Mentors, where our horsemen's mentors were there with them every step of the way for guidance. Matt's horse was a very sensitive gelding named Turbo. This horse brilliantly showcased Matt's calm and methodical approach based on the horse's mental well-being. Matt won this challenge not because he did the most with the horse, but because he knew when to stop for the sake of the horse's mental and physical well-being. Prioritising the horse over winning a competition was what really stood out to me and why I wanted to have a chat with Matt and his wife Lauren.
Matt, it's basically, I think it'd be really cool for us just to have a chat about, I suppose a big theme on my page is welfare, obviously, and what I've learned since I've started this journey that I'm on now is that welfare means whole heap of different things to a whole heap of different people. And as you know, with equestrianism, there's so many facets to it and different things that people love about horses and what they want to do with their horses. And I know you guys saw the video that I posted last week about sort of my ideas around welfare, particularly coming off the back of going to Equitana and watching a real shift that you could feel at Equitana about what welfare means, and a lot of people talking about the nervous system and how that relates to the horse. And I think there's been a real runaway train for quite a few years now about what that means, and I think everybody's trying to digest it and relate it back to their own journey with their horses. And I thought watching you in Way of the Horse, congratulations by the way on winning that. Amazing. I teared up a few times watching that in the stands because there was just some real shifts in how that competition was judged. And I really wanted to get a bit of feedback from you about how you found the experience and your horse. And obviously your horse wasn't super straightforward, but yeah, just how did you find that experience, and what do you got to say about it?
Well, it was a hell of a thing, really, and they asked me to do it quite a long time ago, and then a few years back, in fact, they first rang and asked me to do it, and I said, I've never really believed that starting colts has anything to do with competition. It's not really the time or the place, so that's a really hard thing to sort of get your head around. Then COVID hit, and anyway, things went on, and then they rang again and said, would you come and do it this year just gone? And I said, I'm not really interested. It's not, I think colt starting and horsemanship should be about education. It should be about sharing knowledge. It should be, it's not really my thing. And anyway, then they kept on ringing, and I spoke to Ken, and we had a bit of a chat, and we said, well, pretty much they've asked us to come and show what we do. So if we treat it exactly like that, we show what we do day to day, starting horses the best that we can, that's all we can do. Yeah. And it's so then of course we had like a Zoom meeting maybe 6 months ago. How long was that? Yeah. With everybody, with Amber and Flinders and Priscilla and Adam and Ken, and they were talking about how we were going to make this Masters and Mentors thing kind of work, and getting around the rules and all the logistics and the ins and outs of how it's going to look and how it's going to go. And people were getting very, very human about the rules and all the ins and outs and the specifics of how the competition was going to run. And it was starting to bug me a little bit. And I said, well, hang on a sec. If we're really doing the right thing by the horse here, these little horses presumably will know nothing about people. They're going to know very little. So the one thing that they will know about people is they'll know a person on the ground. Mm. Why then, when they were talking about the rules and not having the mentor in, one person I know don't touch the horse, do all the things. Said, why would you take away the one thing that the horse knows about humans at the one moment in his life that he needs it the most? Yeah. And everybody kind of said, and that was a good shift. So then Adam Sutton, he said, yes, when are we going to move this away from competition and more towards education? Yeah. And we all said, there we go. So I think that right there was like you said, a big shift in that in the the way of the horse as a competition.
Yes,
So
yeah.
yeah. And right from there, it sort of set the tone a little bit. And then pretty much trying to keep the competition side of it out is incredibly hard. That was really tricky. And I had it in my mind the whole time. I'm just going to go start the horse. I'm here to start the horse and have a bit of fun, have a week away. That's all that I was kept on telling myself and kept on telling everybody.
Yeah, and always putting the horse first.
That's right. I said publicly on several occasions, I'm not prepared to sell my soul for a buck or anything else. This horse has got to be a riding horse, and that's what I'm here to do. So we just did the best we could.
That really shone through, like watching you work. And it was really challenging at Equitana to get around all of the things I wanted to see. But I really particularly wanted to watch that competition because, you will know there's been some controversy around that as well. But I just felt that this year there was such a difference. And when I watched you working with the horse on the first day, I thought, oh, this is going to be really interesting because there was 3 very different horses in that competition, from the Palomino to the 2 chestnuts that you guys had. And how did you find, so obviously you came into this competition with a real mindset that you were just going to be about the horse. You weren't there to gain followers or, any kind of, I suppose, adoration for just being there to almost pump up your ego and show how much you can do, how quickly. And I really loved that when you went to the final night of competition that you controlled the audience as well, because a big thing that I noticed with horses going into that large atmosphere is, people want to clap for the horse at the end, and you knew that was going to, set your horse off. And so you controlled that situation with everybody in the crowd too, which I really appreciated. But I loved that you left that horse at the point where you knew that he could go on and he's had a really good start and he can go on to do other things, rather than I was under no illusions that, you couldn't have got on that horse and pushed it through and probably got it further along, but it wasn't the right thing for the horse. And when you did that and you stopped right there, honestly, I was in tears in the crowd, because it was such an amazing moment for horses. And for you to get on that stage in front of that many people and make that stand, that was a moment. It was an absolute moment.
That's I'm very glad to hear that.
Makes me feel emotional talking about it now, because I feel like equestrianism generally has been so lost for so long, trying to navigate from, we used horses in war and to get around, and they were a vehicle, to now navigating through to partnership, thinking about their mental state of mind. And so for you, how challenging was that, being in that environment and managing all of those situations? And you had a challenging horse as well. How did you navigate that on a personal level?
It was really hard, to be honest. So being in that format, in that situation, and the one thing, trying to work a horse against the clock, my God, that's hard. I'd never ever attempted to try and do that in my life before, and just with a horse like him, I'd finally after the hour, I'd finally be getting some good stuff coming through his mind. He's starting to settle, and we were getting our language to start to happen, and I was really at a place where I could just sort of start getting some good stuff to happen. And then they'd say 5 minutes, 2 minutes, get your saddle off. So that was really tricky. There was nothing easy about that. And then, of course, all the eyes, you think that you can just sort of block it out. And once you start working with the horse, it's, you can block it out okay. You can to a certain extent. And, I work horses all day, every day, and that's pretty normal. But in that setting, it is different. I know, you can't pretend it's not.
No.
So it was pretty hard. And, then you feel all the people saying, oh, we're going for you, we want you to win, or what, people being nice and, doing all the things that they do.
Yeah.
And I'm just kept on saying to everybody, well, I'm just here to give this horse a little start. I mean, he's not going to be started after 4 days. He's just going to have to be worked for 4 days. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like he's broken in by then. That's not what this thing is about. And I think around the way of the horse competition, people think that too. So when people are calling that the horse gets started over 4 days, they don't. It's not a start. It's just been worked for a few days. That's all it is.
It's an introduction.
You got it. Spot on. Yeah. That's
yeah.
all it is.
And how did you find managing? Obviously, there's an entertainment factor at Equitana, and I know a lot of people have spoken about that on my page. You know, it is a 4-day extravaganza of horses, and it's very difficult for the professionals. And I really felt for a lot of them, you know, you're getting a horse that you don't have a relationship with, and there is people that are turning up to be entertained. And so balancing that with doing the right things for, you know, approach and the right things for the horses mentally, I think is challenging. And it's really hard because I think there's a lot of people who think that a horse should never be stressed out, that in an environment like that's no place for a horse. I hear a lot. But I think people forget too that stress is a normal part of life. And that's what I was sort of trying to say in my video last week, is that in the wild, there's a lot of stresses for an animal, you know, particularly if they've got predators around. I don't think that the point of training horses is to never put them in a stressful situation or to never trigger the nervous system. I think regulation and expanding that bandwidth for what a horse can cope with, they actually are capable of quite a lot more than people realize. And so how did you find that managing all of that stuff in once in that massive environment?
Well, yeah, it was really tricky in that environment because you got to, like I say, keeping the competition out was hard. So when, I don't know, I just feel horses like I think we all do, you know, and I could feel when he was bothered, when he's nervous. I can feel his heart rate go up inside of me. You can just feel anxiety, you can feel worry, you can feel fear, all those things you can feel. And so when he was feeling so much of that, I just couldn't help but feel for him. So, I just flat out refused to push him too far and just said, well, you are what you are. And I mean, it's a lucky dip as far as the competition side of things goes. And I firmly believe that the best thing about that competition is that we get to come together and share knowledge with each other. So, you know, we all get to learn. You know, I got to learn from Adam and Amber and Flinders and Priscilla, you know, just talking and conversation, you know. Like everything at Equitana, you go to the talks, you get to learn so much. It's the best thing about it.
Oh, so 100%. The collaboration and getting a group of people together for the learning experience. Like, you know, anybody I speak to, I say just nothing compares to Equitana. And if you go in with an open mind and I think it's really hard for people in those events as well to not get triggered by their own personal stuff. And so having an open mind to the learning and some of the different ideas that you might hear. And I think that's something we're exposed to a lot on social media. I'm not sure how much time you spend on social media, but it's a flurry of, you know, so many different opinions. And I find it really challenging to present people with new information and it be accepted in a way of like, you know, people aren't judgmental and they don't just instantly snap to what they know. I mean, it's really challenging. And I mean, I'm not sure how much time you spend on social media, Matt, but you know, since Equitana, there's been a lot of stuff floating around about the entertainment aspect and stuff. But I just feel that maybe we're in a position now with the welfare stuff and the, you know, the talks that are happening, that maybe people might be open to moving back into a bit more of a practical realm with horses. I mean, so. What's your thoughts on that sort of aspect?
I think, to me, humanising it is probably the biggest problem, the biggest issue. We humanise these things. You hit the nail on the head just before. You said in the wild, horses have lots of stresses, and they really do. Injuries, predators, all sorts of things, hierarchy issues. And guess what? At the other end of that, with all those injuries and all the pressures, there is very, very little sympathy. So we want to then pile on and give them all the sympathy and all the, you know, the stuff. It's about support. It's not about our human emotions. It's not about making us feel good, you know, in ways that humans like. It's about making horses feel good. So it's supporting them. And being there for them is so much nicer than just being nice to them. So, like you said, we don't avoid the stresses. Struggle. I tell everybody in courses all the time, embrace the struggle. If you're struggling, you're getting better. You're meant to. Struggle's good. Nothing in the world that is excellent was not a struggle at some point for someone.
Correct.
So embrace the struggle. We should do it, and we can help horses. What's in it for horses is a question that rides my mind for years. For 20 years I've been thinking, what's in it for them? And one of the things that I've found that I think is incredibly important is we can show horses how much braver and stronger and calmer they can be in situations that they never knew they could. So when we can do that for a horse, that's really being there for them. And it's not all whistles and daisies. It's not all pretty. Getting through there, getting to that point, it's not necessarily easy or pretty. You got to let the ugly happen for the pretty to come.
No, exactly. But yeah, we can't just be removing all the obstacles that actually are needed for growth in the horse as well, like you say. And I think that's been a big problem recently, and it's something that I've struggled with listening to people talk about. That anthropomorphizing onto horses, is that we are predators. Our eyes are forward facing. Horses have got their eyes on the side. They're prey animals, and so our whole systems are wired differently. And I just think that removing all of the obstacles of stress is not the way forward either. And like you say before, this is where training comes into it. How much can we stretch that animal's bandwidth to not only cope but to be confident and bold? Yeah, and so it's really challenging territory, and that's something that I became aware with the work that I'm doing as well, with all the dissection work. And obviously it's difficult to balance people's perspective on my work, because I am looking at broken horses. The opportunity to look at unbroken horses, while I have looked at a few unridden specimens, I just don't get that many. And so it's very easy to get in like a doom spiral or a negative spiral about all of this kind of stuff without balancing it. And that's something I haven't found the sweet spot yet. But managing people's expectations, and then probably the other thing you see quite a lot too is people projecting their inner trauma and their triggers and all of that stuff onto the horse. And as you know, having a connection with a horse, that's a two-way street, right?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So you're doing clinics with people as well, are you?
Yeah. We run a bunch of clinics. We've been building a house this year, so I've had to back off on a few, and have my focuses elsewhere a little bit this year. But we've got the full calendar again. We've got Brumbies in Queensland coming up in April. I think we've got colt start in February, and then another colt start in March here.
Yeah.
And so Ken and I do most of the colt starts. All the ones in Queensland we do together, and then the ones we do here I do with my son Tyson.
Oh, cool! Family business.
So there's always lots of clinics, and got lessons every Saturday usually, and it keeps us pretty busy.
Yeah. And so, are you competing at all, or what do you do with your horses?
Competition's not really my thing. I don't really like it. I'm not actually very good at competing. It's it's not really my thing. I compete a little bit in dressage. So I've got a nice little quarter horse mare who is 6 now, I believe. Yeah. And she's never lost a class that she's been entered in. She's won everything she's ever gone in. So we poke along, but I don't compete a lot. A little bit of cowboy dressage. Pretty much just to keep me refined, and I'm getting older. I need something pretty sort of easy going these days, and something that's a high level of quality, and horsemanship and soft feel is at the forefront. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, and who have your mentors been? Because I saw in a couple of your photos, you almost looked like you had a few Manolo Mendes moves in what you were doing.
There you go. Yeah, so a little bit of the classical dressage rubs off. It's absolutely.
I trained with Manolo 10 years ago, and that was at a period of time where I was trying to be a dressage rider, and I'd been down the very modern road of complete subjugation of the horse. And I got myself my first purebred Andalusian stallion, who instantly sort of put me on my ass, and I went, oh my God, I'm way out of my depth here, I went to a Manolo Mendes clinic and I had my stallion. I was actually 6 months pregnant at the time with my son, and I had my stallion out in the arena, and he was like a kite just on the end of the lunge rope, and he double barreled at me, and like I was thinking, holy shit, this is getting dangerous. And then I took him into the arena with Manolo, and within 10 minutes, Manolo just had that horse like absolute butter, and I was like, what is this witchcraft? But learning all of those subtle cues and learning to have the conversation as a two-way street with the horse, rather than like, listen here, you're going to listen to me. And stallions often don't respond to that kind of domination. So yeah, I remember seeing Manolo for the first time. But who else have you trained with? Because it sounds like you've gone down a bit more of a classical route.
Yeah, only through the cowboy dressage mainly. So, looking at that, a lot of the cowboy dressage, a lot of the classical dressage philosophies, it all comes into one. We just got a different uniform on a lot of the time.
Correct. Yeah.
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 But so in my early days, I was lucky enough to study with Leslie Desmond. She was one of Bill Dorrance's students and wrote a book. Yeah. And I worked with some good reining trainers in the US as well. And I stayed at Pat Pirelli's farm for 3 months when I was a young fella there for a bit. Through that, I actually got to work with a fella called Ronnie Willis, which was one of his mentors. So that was really good. I went away for a couple of weeks and worked with Ronnie Willis and a fella called Dennis Franklin, who were both reining trainers.
Yeah.
And before that as well, I worked with all the guys in the Vic High Country in the Snowy Mountains, so man from Snowy River territory.
Oh, wow. You're a true blue Aussie.
That's where I started off, breaking in as it was then. And they thought it was hilarious to stick the skinny 15-year-old on the horse after they'd thrown him and let him up for the first ride and watch him buck around and carry on. So right there, I learned so much right then about that there's got to be a better way. So, I could see and feel all the stress that the horses were under, and I thought, I don't think this is necessary. And so, I spent a good chunk of time then just finding better mentors, better people to learn from. And so throughout Australia, I've worked with, I always skip my mind now, another reining trainer. Anyway, it'll come to me. But I've been very lucky. I've just kind of worked around and, spent a lot of my time as a young fella working for room and board and working for free, just so that I could gain knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's been a period of time in your life where you've really done like a significant U-turn, or a horse that's really challenged you that you've gone, ooh, I need to rethink what I'm doing here?
Yeah, I've had hundreds of them. Yeah, so many times, you think you start getting good and you're like, oh, I've got this horse and thing sorted. I'm pretty good now. And then you get one that comes and just belts you. And you go, wow, time to rethink, and you're always searching and always. And I think one of the really big things is you should always have that little bit of self-doubt, that little bit of, is it right, that little bit of question. And if you don't have that, you're missing something. Something's gone wrong.
I completely agree.
It's important to keep that,
a little bit of self-doubt in the back of your mind is I think that's very normal and healthy.
I think it's what makes us, doesn't it? It's good.
Yeah. If you don't struggle with a little bit of imposter syndrome, I think you're probably maybe a little bit of a psycho.
I like that, imposter syndrome. That's good.
Yeah. It's an actual term. Of feeling like you don't belong, or you're an imposter. And look, I mean, we all have to back ourselves to a certain extent, but if you don't have that little bit of imposter syndrome in the back of your mind, I think there's probably some other issues going on. But it's something I've really struggled with as well, going into doing the dissection work. There's some very accomplished people already in that space. But we all bring our own element and difference to the work, and all of us are from a slightly different background. So I think it's important not to compare yourself too much to other people. Just stay on your own path, which is different for us all, right? It's like we've all come from slightly different backgrounds, and that is the beauty of dressage too. Is it's not just about being in a top hat and a dressage saddle is, training is dressage is for the horse, and that comes in many different forms as well. You ride your dressage presumably in a Western saddle.
Yeah, Western saddle or Australian sock saddle. You're allowed to in Australia if you like, but yeah.
Yeah, right. The swinging fender,
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So,
Yeah.
back to Equitana a little bit, because I think it's easy to look online at what Equitana was and what was going on at Equitana and make a judgment. How did you find Equitana in behind the scenes? Like, I'm not sure how they run things in the background. Like, do all the competitors get together and you guys get to have a yarn about how you're finding the whole experience? And
yeah, we did. Yeah, so we met before it all started, and right from the start, I can't help it. I just was right there saying, "Hey, we're all in this together, you guys. I'll be cheering for you, and just make it all friendly, and it's going to be a fun week." I just tried to sort of make it like that, and I was a little bit older than those guys as well. So they kind of just a little. So Flinders is only 21, so I'm like twice his age, and I'm a good 7-8 years on Amber too.
No, Amber's only she was 29.
So there you go. So I'm more like 14 years older than Amber as well. But it was really good. We got along great. Like number one, they're both really good people. We had a lot of fun, and they both are going to be outstanding horse people in their own right. They're well on the way. Yes. They can do a really good job. But it was good fun, and Sandy was good support. She helped us out.
Excellent.
And, she was terrific. With the whole process, and it was very, very much friendly camaraderie. It was very good.
Yeah, and there was a really big theme of making sure that the horses were well looked after, that they're, not just physically but emotionally. Just really, I think there was a big shift there from where it's been in the past, and I think they really did a great job this year in putting that at the forefront, making it more educational. But I think like Matt said before, it was still. I guess we're still hanging on to that competition side. So maybe making it more of a challenge as opposed to it being a competition.
I reckon this year was a big shift towards it being much more of an educational demonstration type deal rather than taking the emphasis off the competition, which was really refreshing to me. I was really glad to see that. And I tried my best we all tried to roll with that side of it as much as we could.
And I think that they could not have picked better judges. I think the judging panel were excellent, and it was beautiful to see how they their insights into how they saw the day sort of unfolding, and then particularly with I guess the judging at the end. I think the Equitana maybe need to provide a little bit more information about how the judges' criteria is set out, because there were, I think, a few people saying, "Oh, but hang on, blah, 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 this is what was done," and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, we obviously knew what the whole criteria was, and having that more accessible in an educational format for people attending and spectators
that aren't colt starters obviously see Amber go as far as she did and do the great job she did, and then they automatically think, why didn't she win? Which is absolutely fair enough.
Well, it's totally valid.
But if you read if you read the criteria and what the judges are looking for and all the information that we're given, they judged it exactly on that, and that's how they explained it. And and thank goodness, because it should be judged on people starting horses and doing the job that they do with the horse that they're given, that they get. It shouldn't be just an obstacle course. We can do obstacle courses forever. It should be judged much more deeply.
And from you guys, from a training perspective as well, I've started my own horses since I was 15. You should treat it, or it should be seen as like, okay, you're taking an unhandled horse in. How far would you take that horse if this was not a competition setting at home? How far could you get in 4 days? Not how far can you push the horse in 4 days to then jump over a jump and mount it off of a hay bale and drag something behind the horse, and all of those obstacles that were set out. And I really loved that when you got to the final night, you didn't even really look at any of those obstacles, and it was more just you and the horse. And I love that you were like, I'm just going to keep telling this horse how much of a good boy he is. And, you still brought the entertainment factor that was required, but you didn't push that horse beyond you where you knew that horse could comfortably sit. And I love that. That was honestly, it was the highlight for me of Equitana, just seeing that shift and seeing how all the trainers talked to people about the nervous system. And you are right. I think that from a management perspective, from Equitana's point of view, that they could have done more to educate people on why the shift was happening. And little things like in Will Rogers' clinic, his masterclass, people were just stomping up and down those loud metal stairs. And while it's one thing to get a horse comfortable in that big environment, then you've got every Tom, Dick and Harry walking up the stairs going clomp, 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 and they are metal stairs, they're loud, and that's just too much over the threshold of what those horses were already coping with.
That poor Grey was
Yeah. Which I love that. He tried to bring the. Did you go to that clinic?
I saw parts of it. I saw where the Grey horse was struggling, and then I loved how he got everybody to ground themselves and did that little thing where sit, think about your feet, think about it down through the grandstand, breathe in, and got everyone just to shut up essentially.
Body and mind awareness.
Yeah, and just to bring the energy into the room down, and to make people more mindful. And I always say to people, oh, it was amazing. I always say to people, horsemanship is the journey inwards. And if what you say and what your body does, if they don't align, horses know. So I really loved all of that kind of stuff. I definitely felt there was a shift this year at Equitana, and it's for the better, I think. But it's amazing how people really cling on to the competition aspect, isn't it? There was a complaint that I saw on the Equitana page about a lady saying that she really felt sorry for the other black horse that was in the clinic with the grey one. Because the black horse just walked around very calmly, and I thought, oh, everything's about perspective, isn't it? Because I watched that, and I thought that black horse had the perfect experience. It got to come out, see the environment, it coped, and it just got on with its job. The grey horse needed the time and the energy spent on it with Will, and I thought he managed that, given the situation, masterfully. But people still chose to complain that the black horse didn't get to show off, and I was just like, oh, we need to kind of move on from that thinking. But then super difficult to balance, and then we've got, the other end of the spectrum out there at the moment is people promoting that we shouldn't even be riding horses. And I'm like, we haven't found that happy balance yet between the extremes of the scale. And I mean, do you think we will?
Right. Well, something that Ken said to me for the first time, probably a fair while ago now, probably 8 or 9 years ago now. First time I heard him say it, he says, I'm pretty sure we're going to have our right to ride horses questioned within our lifetime. And it's on.
It's happening now. It's happening now. So something I just want to talk about quickly is because we're coming up to 2 hours. Is that while I was coming back from Europe last time from a dissection, a woman got hold of me, an Australian woman, and she's doing a documentary at the moment that's going to be on Netflix. And her MO, although the documentary has been sort of positioned more around like the abusive techniques of horse riding and things, but her long-term goal is to ban horse riding. And those people are operating out there, and I just question if people like that have ever spent any time in the wild, and they know what they're promoting for, and I just it worries me that people could be out there doing that kind of work and under a false premise, and people are blindly and people are blindly supporting that stuff, not really understanding what people's real true motives are in the background. I think it would be a huge loss to not only humans but horses as well.
I agree. I think it would be a travesty. And you think back, like you said before, the history, horses have made the world we live in. Without horses, humanity is nothing without horses. So to lose that history and all that knowledge and that tradition would just be a travesty. It's a beautiful thing, being able to create trusting relationship between you and a horse and any horse, and then to be able to create partnership and to be able to be and move as one. So that the horse's power and grace and reflexes and raw athletic ability become something that we can use together. And the horses enjoy that so much of the time when it's done nicely and done right. And, all the good things that we can offer horses are put in there. It's a fantastic thing. To say we shouldn't do that is ridiculous. We breed them for that. It's part of humanity and what we are as a species now. And it'd be a shame to lose that.
Oh, absolutely. And I just think it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle anyway. I mean, imagine if we were like, release all the chihuahuas to the wild. And it's the same with horses. They're just done. A lot of them are not built to go back to the wild now. We have interfered with them too much. And there's that happy balance, isn't there? Because there are definitely a lot of genetic things that we have unknowingly created in the horses, but it's too late to go back now. So we've got to deal. Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's pros and cons to everything, and I think that the moment you start focusing on just the positives or just the negatives, the balance is lost. And I'm seeing so many extremists in the equine world now with very close-minded views. You see the same thing with the barefoot and the shoeing people. I mean, I'll leave my horses barefoot if they have the feet to support that, and I'll shoe them if I think it's going to be of a benefit to them.
Absolutely.
So, I just think it's, there's ideals and then there's the realities. And I think that this is where we're getting a little bit further along. And like we discussed before we started the interview, there's people who believe that animals don't have to die for there to be meat on our supermarket shelves.
Yeah.
Like, I just think, I'd like to see horsemanship a little bit less extremist and just come back to a little bit of a balanced position where we consider all of these things and we understand what we're taking on. But I say to people all the time, anyone could go to the gym, but if you lift the weights incorrectly, then you develop your body incorrectly. And personal trainers know this, and it is the same with horses. Like, if you have no idea what you're doing, you bounce around the horse unbalanced, you are going to have an effect on the horse's body. So we all need to be better at what we're doing. But, you don't have to go to the extreme of that and then be like, oh, well, we shouldn't be riding horses then.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I think you're exactly right. It's all about balance. And, always learning. We're forever learning. Like you say, with your dissection work, there's so much new information always coming out, which we've got to learn. But practicality and the fact of the matter is the world, and it's not always perfect. And, it's all about the balance. Find the balance. Horses need leadership, they need guidance, they need, they need the boundaries to feel safe. So if we can offer safety to the horse, that's the best thing we can do. And that's what's going to make them feel the best and be their best. So finding ways to do that doesn't mean you're going to tickle them into feeling safe. You got to show them where the boundaries are and where to stop and where the line is, and get them to the place where you can tell them that they're the best without lying to them. Because if you're a liar, you can't trust them.
100%, and that's an authentic feeling from you. It's not just words coming out of your mouth, and on the inside you're going, oh, look, for goodness sakes, horse, would you stop being a dick, So it's from a place of
the cogs to turn in the head, let them do it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah, no, it's a funny old world. It's something I've had to balance in my work as well. Like I'll show growth plates, for example, that are open along the spinal column until 5 or 6, and so people automatically go, oh my god, well, we shouldn't be riding horses till they're 5 or 6. And it's like, no, that's not what I advocate for either. If you wanted to be a gymnast, you wouldn't start training to be a gymnast at 25. There is a conditioning element for the horse's body it's like, what is age appropriate for the horse, so we build strength and we don't swap strength for flexibility and actual weakness or laxity in the horse's body, but what can we do to build them up and strengthen all those areas so that the horse can have longevity.
Absolutely.
So
And we
again,
need to
it
strengthen
comes
the mind in the same way at the same time.
Correct.
So keep the mind prepared for what it's going to be. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it's just it's
Uncomfortable.
neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Yeah. Building that neuroplasticity, it doesn't mean that you do nothing. It's teaching the mind how to think, and that's what I say to people as well. Like, horses have to learn how to learn, and so you still have to ask those questions. They just have to be age appropriate for both mental and physical well-being.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Nowadays, when I start horses, just on that, since looking more into classical dressage and things like that, in the younger days, it was always much more just cow work and, all those sorts of things. But now, looking further into classical dressage and engaging the hindquarters and engaging the belly, when you can teach your horse those little things, I don't know if you saw, even in the demo I did at Equitana, I asked the horse just to soften his nose from the back up. So just little things like creating that posture where a horse holds himself strong, he can then be weight bearing. But, he's got to condition and learn to do that. If you just climb on him and let him run gangly, then straight away you're not conditioning to be a weight bearing animal, because he's not actually that. And when he's born at all, is he? I'm guessing. So he's got to learn to carry the weight and to actually to do that like anyone, So now when we start horses, I'm already looking straight away for being able to bring the hindquarter up a little bit and just start putting all those little things, those thoughts into the horse's mind, ready, so that as he goes on. And whereas when I was younger starting horses, I started hundreds of horses and never even crossed my mind. So, we all evolve. We're all learning as we go, aren't we? And we just got to hope we keep getting better.
I think that's one thing to be mindful of too, is we are learning at the expense of the horse.
That's true.
And that's the reality of it. Like, I think about the things that I did in my 20s. That if it doesn't send a shudder down your spine, like, baby, you haven't grown that much. But that is the reality. And for the grace and forgiveness of the horse, I'm always grateful, because it doesn't matter, as long as you're not doing, awfully abusive things, you can always go back and go, I'm really sorry, we've gone slightly down the wrong path here. We're going to go back a step and then go in a different direction. And horses are so amazingly pliable like that. I mean, I look at how many rehab, so forgiving, more than we deserve often. But, that is the beauty of them, is, it's not just a throw the baby out with the bathwater situation. You can always go back and change things, provided we haven't done any long-term damage. But they're amazingly pliable like that. And I just think, I think that people are missing a lot there too, when they just, discard the horse and go, oh, well, that horse is ruined, moving on now. It's a real shame, but anyway, I digress. Thank you very much for the chat. I'm sure people will be very interested to hear, because, like I say, the way of the horse, it's had some controversy around it, and I'll be interested. I'll definitely be back in 2 years' time when Equitana is back on, because I just think for the learning and what's available, and dare say the shopping, my bank account took a bit of a hit, but it's just you can't go past it, and I really say to all the Kiwis here, just nothing we have here compares on the scale and the education that you can get and what you get. We got the VIP tickets, the whole experience. It's worth every bloody cent that you pay. So from the bottom of my heart, Matt, I just want to say thank you, because you being able to obviously you're not an egotistical driven man anyway, but you being able to just put that aside and do what was right for the horse and balance, the showmanship with what was right for the horse, it was just an absolute breath of fresh air. And I know there was many other presenters there this year that I had those emotional moments with, because it was such a change in vibe and feeling at Equitana. So, thanks for being part of that change and doing what was right for the horses.
Yeah, look, I'd spent 3 days with that little horse earning his trust. There was no way I was going to betray that then. There's just no way.
No.
No way.
Yeah.
He's a good little horse, and he'll make a good little horse. Yeah.
Yes, I actually had the owner of those 3 horses sitting behind me up in the stands on the final day, and she was chuffed.
Oh,
so it
excellent.
was,
That's great.
yeah, I was sitting in the hot seats.
Well done. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And Lauren, thanks very much for persevering with me. We had a whole hour of messing around to make this happen before it got going. Yeah, when horse traders not yeah. When horse traders get involved in technology, right?
That's right.
Anyway, thank you very much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. See you later. Bye.